or in the United Corporations of America, loud and proud with the flag behind me. Hope everyone is having a decent day, decent week in these trying times. I didn't really plan much. I just figured I'd do some phone calls with the people. We like to do that from time to time, talk directly to you. We're working on a lot of things. I'm working on quite a lot of things. My book, what's today? Oh, so tomorrow would be 1 month since my book, We the Poisoned, came out. I went on with Katie Halper the other day. I went on with Nathan Robinson from Current Affairs the other day. Earlier today, I went on with Crystal Ball and Kyle Kalinske on their podcast, which was really awesome for a longer interview. So I believe that will be going out on their podcast feed shortly. And Sunday, I'll promote this later on too, but Sunday I'll be in DC where Crystal is nice enough to interview me at Busboy and Poets, which is a bookstore. So that'll be at 6 o'clock at night at Busboy and Poets. So I hope you can make it out if you're in the DC area or anywhere in driving distance to DC. And I'm also just started today, starting to put out feelers for a road trip, a reporting trip towards the end of the month in swing states. So I'm thinking Michigan, I'm thinking Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, maybe Tina would be able to do Arizona, potentially Nevada on the West Coast, but not, not like, hey, we're going to go out there and discuss the polls and, who are you going to vote for, Kamala or Trump? That's already being done. Plenty of people do that. I'm thinking of going out there and actually, showing reality on the ground, the conditions for people, interviewing people about their lives, their economic struggles, their struggles, period. We've done this before. At the beginning of COVID, we did a reporting trip. We did an economic reporting trip during the worst of inflation, which is still pretty bad. Just talking to people and interviewing people, in some cases, homeless people, other cases, people are really struggling paycheck to paycheck, small business owners. So looking to do that again. Obviously, we don't have a giant money tree that grows. So we need people to support us as Status Coup members to do that. So if you can, please support us. Also excited that the audio version of my book will be out on September 27th. So that's towards the end of the month. There's been a decent amount of people telling me, or asking me, hey, is there an audio version? Because I don't really like to read, but I like to listen to books. So that'll be out towards the end of the month. So yeah, a lot of things are going on. You also have the presidential debate coming out on Tuesday. I'm ashamed to say I just totally blanked that it was in Philadelphia. I did not remember that it was in Philadelphia. So now that I know it's in Philadelphia, which is close enough to us, John and I might go down there, try to interview folks before the debate. I'm sure there will be some Kamala people out there, some Trump people out there. I hear there's going to be protests as well. So we'll try to be on the ground before the debate Tuesday. What's Tuesday? September 10th. Yeah, for that as well. So plenty going on. And please support us if you can. We have some momentum going right now, which has not always been the case. Sometimes it's hard to keep the lights on here in independent media. There's the lights. There's the lights, by the way. It's hard to keep the lights on doing this independently, but we're growing. Past 200,000 subscribers recently. Now we're at 208,000 subscribers. Got a decent gain in paid members recently, which is definitely welcome. We certainly need that. So definitely help us if you can. Also seeing some other stories that we might want to hit the ground running for as well on the ground. I wish you could email the homeless people at the store near me. Yeah, Tony D said. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much what's going on. But I figured, you know what, I got one thing to show you, and then I'll go right to the phone calls. But if you noticed, and smash the like button, share this live stream. If you notice, every so often you keep hearing we're close to a ceasefire deal. We're close to a ceasefire deal, and Biden, before he dropped out, would keep, even publicly saying, we might have an announcement imminently. and he would be announcing that Israel has agreed to X, Y, and Z. But then nothing happened. Or you would hear Netanyahu coming out completely contradicting what Biden said. Well, I was on the Humanist Report too. Thank you, Tony, for reminding me of that. So, Mike, for the Humanist Report, I should say, I have reached out to Joe Rogan. I have reached out to the Breakfast Club. I have reached out to David Pakman several times. I have reached out to even the Young Turks. Yes, the Young Turks. I have reached out to a lot of outlets, much bigger than this, to try and get on for my book. Or if they can't have me on, at least have them cover the book and the revelations in the book. Haven't heard back for most of those. Democracy Now! As well. They've gotten back to me, just not with a yes yet. So if you support these other shows, please encourage them to have me on. All right. So you keep hearing, oh, we're gonna have a ceasefire soon, but then nothing happens. Then you just hear reports in the media that Netanyahu keeps moving the goalpost, or you see mass protests in Israel. Well, let's see about that ceasefire. Netanyahu went on Fox News. Let's see what he had to say.
How much harder was your job made when President Biden came out and said that you could be doing more towards a ceasefire and a resolution?
Well, I don't know what the president meant by that. You have to ask him, but I'll give you the facts. In July, we put forward a proposal that Secretary Blinken called extraordinarily generous. In August, we accepted an American proposal, a U.S.-backed proposal. Hamas refused. Just in August 16th, there was a final bridging proposal, which we also accepted. Hamas refused. 3 days ago, the Sinwar's deputy, the deputy of Hamas's chief, said that they don't want any deal. They just want Israel out. They don't care for any of these conditions. Israel has to leave. They have to take over the Gaza Strip. And you know that they vowed to do October 7th massacre again and again and again, right, where they butchered our people, raped our women, murdered them, beheaded our men, burnt babies alive, and took hostages. We're not going to let that happen again. So Hamas is not there with a deal. There's not a deal in the making, unfortunately.
And it's
that
not
still
close.
Hasn't happened. They want to reconstitute their terror kingdom, and unfortunately it's not close. But we'll do everything we can to get them to the point where they do make a deal, and at the same time we prevent Iran from resupplying Gaza as this great terror enclave right next to Tel Aviv, right next to our major cities.
So yeah, no deal. By the way, I mean, not that I'm an expert in Israeli politics, but I do read. I kind of know what's going on. Everything he just said has been basically disputed by his top officials in Israel, from the leaders of the Israeli army. They have told him, they have fought with him in meetings to take the deal that is on the table. He keeps blaming Hamas. Now, I'm no, defender of Hamas. I am not for what they did on October 7th. I'm certainly not for the recent killing of 6 hostages. You could be against the Israeli government. You could be against the occupation. You could be against the brutal terror and genocide that has been going on now for almost a year. While at the same time, I'm not going to turn a blind eye to killing innocent hostages or taking innocent hostages. 2 things can be true at the same time. With that said, I mean, it's pretty clear the person not taking the deal has not been Hamas. It has been Netanyahu and his own people, his own executives in his cabinet, or whatever they call it in Israel, have been fighting with him, take the deal, and saying he keeps adding at the end once there's close to an agreement. He keeps making it more difficult. He keeps adding more provisions that ruin the deal. But at the end of the day, why are we even focused just on him? It is very hard for me, ever, to compliment Ronald Reagan, who I think was one of the most destructive forces in American political history. I think the acceleration of the controlled demolition of the working class did start in the late 1970s, but was, like jet fuel under Ronald Reagan. If you look at the chart that we always show with the income inequality and that red line skyrocketing to the top, sure does start right in the early 1980s under Ronald Reagan. From the union busting to the quadrupling of the defense budget to the greed is good era to the deregulation. There's not plenty of nice things to say about Ronald Reagan, even though the Democrats modern day have kind of resuscitated his image. But he did in 1982 pick up the phone, and he did call then Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and say, yeah, this bombing campaign, this slaughter you're doing on Beirut in Lebanon, it ends now. We're not going to support it anymore. This looks like a Holocaust. And guess what? Israel stopped. This could have been done last week. This could have been done last month. This could have been done 6 months ago. This could have been done a long time ago by Biden. If Vice President Harris wanted to be bold, if Vice President Harris wanted to be courageous, if Vice President Harris had a moral compass, she could publicly, now that she's running for president, call for that. She could call for President Biden to say Israel has been breaking international law. She could cite, I believe it's the Leahy law. She could cite that law that says the United States cannot supply weapons to countries that break international law. She could say, I am going to issue a full or partial weapons embargo on Israel because what they're doing is not defense. It is an untargeted, senseless genocide, or whatever, however she wants to put it. But it is very clear that, yes, Netanyahu, there's fault with Netanyahu, but there is fault with us because we hold the purse. We hold the wallet, not them. We hold the wallet, and we are doing nothing but escalating and continuing to write a blank check. And Harris, in her interview with CNN last week, which was basically a complete fluff and softball, she basically said, yeah, I'm not changing anything. So for the people that say, oh, the rhetoric is softer, she shows more sympathy. Well, sympathy is not going to save the children because the bombs do not stop for sympathy. And I also want to read this because, as I reported in a video earlier this week, I think Michigan is critical to whether Harris or Trump wins. And now you have Republican groups targeting Muslim voters in Michigan with ads that tout Harris's ties to Israel, which is kind of rich since the Republicans love Israel and are totally down with this genocide. Democrats in the state immediately labeled the ads a dirty trick from Republicans. So a political action committee founded by Republicans is running digital ads in Michigan, arguing Harris stands with Israel amid Israel's ongoing military campaign in Gaza. The ads also link to a video saying Harris put supporters of a free Palestine in their place. The ad campaign seems to be aimed at convincing Muslim, Arab, and other voters who may be sympathetic to Palestinians not to support Harris by highlighting her pledges to back Israel in an approving tone. The ads, which are running on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, are targeted at a handful of communities in Michigan, according to Meta and Snapchat's political discourse. Only a small amount of money has been spent on the ads so far. I could guarantee you those ads are going to be are already or are going to be shown in the Dearborn area, which is a suburb of Detroit, and in Detroit. And it's really important because, you hear so much about polls and election forecasts and all this hubbubaloo. Well, let me give you the polls that matter. Unfortunately, our presidential election has just come down to math. We should just have a popular vote system, which would be actual democracy, but we have this undemocratic, ridiculous electoral college. So really, it just comes down to 6 or 7 states that are going to decide the election. If Harris does what Biden did in 2020, if she wins Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and Nevada, she's going to win the election. she would have 270 votes based on all the other states that are set as Democrat versus Republican. But if she loses Michigan, as I showed earlier in the week, definitely check out that video on the different scenarios. She's got to do things. She's got to win states that Democrats have only won 2 out of the last 12 elections. That Democrats have won 2 out of the last 50 years. That would mean if she loses Michigan, but still wins Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, she's got to win. She's got to win North Carolina, or she's got to win Georgia. Well, Democrats have not won there. They've only won 2 out of the last 12 elections. One of those was in 2020, where Biden barely won Georgia, and he did not win North Carolina. And why does this matter? Because I don't want to hear, if Donald Trump wins the presidency, I don't want to hear them blaming me. Not that they would blame me. I'm not big enough. I don't want to hear them blaming Jill Stein. I don't want to hear them blaming Cornel West. I don't want to hear them blaming Russia. I don't want to hear them blaming the mailman. She knows what she can do to win the election. I believe if she said, I will institute an arms embargo, I will change the policy, I will not support, I think she would win Michigan quite significantly, because I think Arab Americans would start moving back to her. Not just Arab Americans, I think a lot of young voters, not all, but quite a bit would. She's not doing that for the reasons I've already outlined over and over and over. It's the money, Lebowski. It's the donors. All right, I want to hear what you have to say. Let's start the call-in part of the show. Let me get the calls ready. We could election. We could talk about the ongoing. Talk about the election. We could talk about the ongoing genocide. We could talk about Flint. We could talk about whatever you want. Kind of open. How do I do this again? I completely forgot. Oh, share screen. There you go, Colin. Don't be shy. Call in. I don't want to have a monologue with myself. So yeah, and Colin, I guess, put up the number if you can. Okay. Oh, that's kind of low. Can you make it any bigger? That's all right. If not, but it'd be good to make it bigger. All right. Oh, we already got some phone calls. Holy cow. All right. Giovanni, you're up.
Yeah. Hey, Bud. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Listen, so I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I was until I watched the DNC, I was going to go vote for Kamala. After watching the DNC, absolutely disgusted by that, and I am going to shift to Jill Stein. But Kamala, what they are making a huge bet on is that we are not going to do that. That the uncommitted voters are not going to jump ship. And if we do not punish them, they will never listen to us again. It's like what Lawrence O'Donnell said once. He used to work for the Democratic Party. He said it himself. He never listened to them. They will never listen to us ever again if we continue to reward them. She has said nothing different. The soft tone and all this other nonsense, who cares? Make a commitment. You're a leader. Leaders don't check the weather. Leaders lead.
Right.
They say, you know what? How much could she really lose if she says we are going to follow international law? Israel cannot do this, that, the other. This is how I'm breaking from Biden. What is she going to lose? Like the Jewish population, with all due respect, is 2% of the population in the country, and not all of them are Zionists. So she's going to lose a billionaire or two. Who cares? Bye. She is the nominee. She doesn't need money anymore at this point. She is the nominee. So it's so cowardice to play this sort of dance on the fence so I don't lose my billionaire donors and support genocide all at the same time while hoping that these uncommitted people just overlook the most. This is a moral conviction for the uncommitted. This is not a pocketbook issue. Screw the pocketbook issue. There's nothing more important than the life of a human being. When you see 40,000, almost 20,000 kids killed in front of your screen, there's a point where you go, forget about the money. I'm not voting for this person. And until she makes a stand, there's the uncommitted, and I hope everybody punishes the Democratic Party and votes either Jill Stein or stays home.
I have a couple schools. I have a couple schools of thought on that one, and I definitely hear what you're saying, and I'm hearing it from a lot of people. First of all, I think I'm glad you brought up that Lawrence O'Donnell quote. For those that don't know, O'Donnell, I mean, way back in the day, before I think he even got a show on MSNBC, he basically said, yeah, the Democratic Party will not listen to the left unless they actually think that you won't vote for them. So basically he said you have to actually not just, say we're uncommitted, but actually say we're not voting for you and follow through. But on the second hand, I don't actually know if the Democratic Party does learn any lessons if you don't vote for them. I mean, 2016, we could argue about why Hillary lost. I don't think it was because of the left. She lost 5%. She dropped compared to Obama in 2012, 5% among Latinos, 5% among black voters, and 6% among young voters. Okay. But she did lose to a used car salesman. And what did the left do? What did the Democratic Party do? They didn't move to the left. They moved to the right. They did a five-year hysterical campaign about Russia instead of saying, hey, maybe we need to actually listen to these Bernie people. Maybe we need to actually get in step with young people. Hey, maybe, you know what? Bernie just showed us that we don't need to rely on Wall Street and all these corporate scumbags. We could actually tap into working class people for small dollar donations. So even if, Jill Stein and Cornel West or other third parties got more votes this year, even if Trump won and Harris lost, and the polls show she lost because of young voters, Arab Americans, I'm not convinced that the Democratic Party is going to then learn a lesson and start moving towards us. I would love that to be true, but I'm certainly not convinced of that based on the fact that they did not do that in 2016. With that said, though, I'm not telling anyone how to vote, but I will say, I think that they are, how we always say, the fossil right now, the oil companies and the politicians, they're on their last legs with fossil fuels. They're trying their best to squeeze as much juice out of the orange as fossil fuels industry is dying. I think it's the same thing with the Democratic Party. I think they're trying because they're still so conditioned mentally that they have to win with more money. I think they're still in this old mentality that money is more important than anything else, even though Hillary outspent Trump. Hillary Clinton outspent Trump 2-1. She still lost. I also think Kamala, I partially think she's petrified that if she does the brave thing, if she does what you and I want, that AIPAC will start dropping money bombs against her. But I think if AIPAC dropped money bombs against her, guess what? Young people out protesting right now, all, independence, this and that, she would get a huge, huge surplus in small dollar money from actual voters, even some Bernie people who might not like her on other things, but actually applaud her taking the moral stand. So there's only positives for her to do the right thing. She's not doing it, I think, because she's just a dime a dozen spineless politician.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. The more, and I keep saying this to even our local politicians, the ones that you lose that are extremists, you will gain if you actually have a North Star to follow. If you follow your conviction, you're going to have so many people that will follow you because you represent something. Right now, she just represents the line. Now, going back to what you said, yeah, they haven't learned a lesson. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. Here's why I say that, because the social media is going to change. It's a new, I would say, variable to the mix than when Hillary Clinton lost. The new younger voters, the Generation Zs, are not going to have it. I'm telling you, it's a shift in paradigm here. And I
Right.
think that we have to feed that beginning early phase. We can't give up, put our head in the sand and say they're just not going to change, so we just quit. We can't
Right.
do that. It's not going to be easy. Nothing ever amazing is easy. It is the early stages, whether it's a third party or whatever, but we cannot support a genocidal administration. If she does not come out and clearly say, not through Gordon and all these other people, if she does not come out and say, I am going to follow international law, we will put partial bans, embargoes, whatever. Show us, because she's lost young people too. It's not just the uncommitted Muslim voters. She is going to lose young. She's losing energy. She's losing the momentum she had gained when she was nominated, because people had hopes that she had a different position on this, a different policy. She is losing that energy. And
Right.
if she does not re-engage in that, I'm telling you, she is going to lose. And what Trump does is that's a side issue to me. What we cannot do is reward her and the Biden administration and the Dems, punish them if they don't. And
Right.
in the next election, we may have better candidates, hopefully.
Well, I also think, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really do a lesser of two evils on genocide. You can't say,
No.
well, but it will be better under Trump. I mean, okay, what's Trump going to do? Just nuke Gaza? I mean, I don't
Right.
think he's going to do that, but it's just, at the end of the day, there's nothing worse than almost a year slaughter that the Democrat Biden has been funding. So I don't really think that sells with younger voters, a lot of independent voters. I mean, there's plenty of older voters that are against this. And I agree with you. I mean, you don't reward bad behavior, and this is beyond bad behavior. We'll see. I also think that they're making the mistake. Again, I'm having real 2016 vibes. I don't know about you. I think Kamala Harris, the Democratic Party, the overpaid hack consultants, I think they're really selling to her that there's enough kind of never Trump Republicans out there to cater to, that we could get these never Trump Republicans, that it won't matter if we lose Arab Americans or young voters. I'm here to tell you,
Yeah, I think,
there's not enough of
I
those.
think we're getting that vibe. I think we're getting that vibe in that sense. I do think that it's stupid because you're repeating history. You're
Right.
repeating the mistake you made just 4 years ago. Are you kidding me? Like, at what point are you, like, yeah, you just said it. It's deja vu. And
Yep.
you could alter, you have a moment in time now where I'm telling you, if she goes up to the mic and says, we are going to stop all aid to Israel, review everything from day one, she is going to gain so many young people. She will gain all the Muslim voters. She will gain all the Arabs. She will gain all the independents, because you're standing on something. You show me you have conviction. You don't have to be the brightest person on the planet. You don't have to be the most well-spoken person on the planet. You just go up there and say, look, I'm going to do my best to make the most moral decision. I'm not going to be right all the time. I promise you I'm not. I'm human. I'm flawed. But I am going to make the most moral decision I can, and may God be with me.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
it.
I couldn't
So
agree more with you. Thank you for calling, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
All right. Up next, I believe, is Tony.
Oh, hello.
Hey there.
Hey, I'm so glad I finally caught this live.
Awesome.
So I have a question about your East Palestine coverage. When that coverage started, you interviewed a woman and mother named Souza, Souza.
Zuza, yeah.
Are you still in contact with her?
I haven't talked to her recently. I think I talked to her about a month ago. I think she's temporarily moved out of East Palestine. Yeah.
Oh man, I really enjoy getting to meet all those people, though under such bad circumstances.
Yeah, I have an interview coming out tomorrow. There's more. if you could believe it. More horrible things going on there, and more of the EPA is just beyond brazen cover up there. So be on the lookout for that. The EPA did detect more very, 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 very high levels of what they call dioxins, which are really, really some of the worst chemicals, toxins you could find. They were present during Agent Orange, and just kind of buried it on their website. Didn't tell the residents. So we have a resident and the toxicologist that we've been talking to recently, George Thompson. I did an
Mm-hmm.
interview with both of them, so we'll have that tomorrow. But make no mistake that this is Flint deja vu, and a whole, not just East Palestine, a whole region of America, unfortunately, is going to have health problems if we don't raise hell about this. And not surprisingly, it's not being discussed. It wasn't discussed at the DNC. It wasn't discussed at the RNC. I 100% sure it won't be talked about at the debate. These are sacrifice zones, and they're becoming more and more common in America. Not just Flint, not just East Palestine, Kalamazoo, Native American reservations that are suffering because of mining and fracking. Whole communities that are suffering because of corporate contamination. So yeah, we continue to stay on it as best as we can.
Yeah, and as you said, media won't touch this at all because that interferes with their corporate donors. And it's why I'm so frustrated with all these debates, because they never touch the most important issues going on.
Well, let me tell you, I joke about it, but honestly, it might not be a joke. I might actually try to do this. You would be shocked, absolutely stunned, how much of my time is spent emailing, direct messaging, Instagramming. I mean, sending smoke signals to reporters, to YouTube hosts, to podcast hosts, to news editors, trying to get attention, whether it was when I was breaking stories on Flint or now my book, and the ridiculous bullshit. If they respond, the absurd bullshit responses I get, including from some people in our sandbox that you might even like. I believe, as a country, have I would call it a sickness that is selective amnesia, that is, short, very, very short attention spans. I mean, hell, there was a mass shooting yesterday. I was just watching CNN. It was no longer being covered. 4 people died. Okay. And whether it's YouTube hosts or podcast hosts or TikTok influencers or you name it, things that in other countries, if there's a mass shooting in another country, that's not something that the media covers for a few days. I mean, that's something that could be covered for weeks. Congress or whatever it's called in those countries take immediate action. Here, it's just another day. If there's a water poisoning or a train blows up with chemicals, it's just kind of in the news cycle, out of the news cycle. And that's why I say, I mean, if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, do not depend on the politicians or the media to save you, because our media I think it's a mix of, they don't care beyond the breaking news part of it. They don't care to stay on it. They're disconnected from it, because in most of these places where these things happen is not where these journalists live. Most of the top quote unquote journalists live in New York City, Washington, D.C., LA. They're not in the Rust Belt. They're not, near these areas. Their water's mostly fine. Their air is mostly fine. So when people talk about, well, you need more diversity in media, and they're talking about race and gender.
Right.
Yeah, that's I agree. But I think we need more diversity in media in terms of actually, like, where is the media? Who is the media? Is it all just, cosmopolitan people with journalism degrees, overpaid, who they're plowed with makeup and they're suddenly journalists? Or can we have some working class people as reporters and hosts? I actually got an offer recently from a union member that I've interviewed, a former John Deere worker, to kind of be a roving correspondent for us, and I might take him up on it. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's just, I could go on forever, man. It's very frustrating. I mean, I never ever thought that Flint stuff or my book would become a bestseller. I mean, I don't have any delusions, But I did
Its
think,
own
all
way.
right, if you could break a massive government cover up, if you could break a scandal, I kind of think water is important, then maybe the masses would cover it. And, I shouldn't complain entirely because I've gotten some coverage. I'm happy, Crystal and Kyle just interviewed me today. I was
Mhm.
on Breaking Points. Katie Halper interviewed me the other day. I'm actually going on with Glenn Greenwald, which, although we haven't always agreed on things, I appreciate him having me on.
I'm
That'll be
not a
next.
huge fan.
Yeah, I'm not either. But at the end of the day, this for me, this is about Flint. I'll go on with anybody to get this story out there. I've even reached out to the Young Turks. Not surprisingly, they won't respond. Um, but I have had people have me on. I'd love to have more people have me on, but I'm just going to keep trucking along. But to be clear, I fear that I'll probably be writing another book about East Palestine in a couple years. I don't want to be,
Yeah.
but by the way, there are so many other Flints and East Palestines out there that even I don't know about. There are so many places, and it's not just water, air, soil, fracking, mining, but the media won't cover it. And local media, most importantly, is not doing their job either. So, yeah, I'll just keep doing what I could do, but you'd be shocked what a big the gatekeepers are closing the gates. Let's put it that way. The media
Mhm.
is a huge, huge impediment. And I basically had media, like large outlets say to me, like, tap me on the shoulder, like, oh, we admire what you're doing, but, this won't, we can't really do anything with this because there's not interest. And when I try
'Cause they're
explaining, actually, there is a lot of interest. You're just not telling the story. Like when I tell them, like, I've kind of built a small but a decently successful small dollar, uh, independent media outlet based on these stories. There's a huge demand for it. People don't know about it. They kind of just scoff at me. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'll keep on doing it as long as folks like you help me keep the lights on.
Yes, I definitely will. I love the interviews.
Thanks, Ben. Anything else?
I just wanted to say that I love when Steve Grumbine is on, and he definitely seems to be a communist or socialist. And I'd love to hear him talk more about alternative ways of having a society and
Yeah.
talk more in detail about socialism.
Yeah, I was gonna. He was supposed to come on Tuesday, but it was his daughter's birthday, so he had to take her to dinner. But yep, try to have him on at least once a week. Steve's a great guy. I definitely think he's more of a socialist. I don't know if he'd call himself a commie, but he's definitely,
Yeah.
definitely brings a lot of unique perspectives. That again, it's too bad that you don't hear more of Steve Grumbine, in the media, because the truth is, we could have fixed the Flint problem a decade ago. Just like we snap our fingers to send money to Israel and Ukraine and everywhere else, could have done it for Flint and many other places. So, yeah, thank you for calling, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next up, David.
Hi there. I'm a
Hey.
little confused. I'm usually listening to the other, liberal channel, what's left of them. Hi. What you said about locals. Yeah, I briefly ran for mayor of North Miami Beach. So, of course, they found a shopping mall that's outside North Miami Beach to look for our voters. What? And these are the professional reporters, not the third stringers, but they didn't know what to do, and they didn't bother to ask me. Even after I dropped out. But the bigger problem we have, I've suggested on a midday show, maybe every network should have a licensed social studies teacher like I am. So we have, some lie catchers or people who understand, oh, that is a completely useless or out of date question.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd really like to see is a circle graph of not just who's voting Trump, who's voting Kamala, but also who's voting third party and who's staying home. Until
Right.
you see it as 4-player chess instead of just checkers, you lose. You miss the game. And of course, every time I hear of a national poll, I want to scream, "Show me the Electoral College." And of course, here I am in Florida, where we have this truly evil senator. He should have been in jail for a spree killing before he became senator.
Which one, Scott or
but
Rubio?
Well, Rubio is awful in a different way,
Yeah.
but at least David Hogg got a chance to stand up to him.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, Florida, there was a retirement home without air conditioning in the summer. So, of course, they were literally waiting for him to call saying that he could at least try something. But, of course, he doesn't care about anything. That's why he did nothing about doctor shopping, which might have saved our Rush Limbaugh.
Right.
Rush Limbaugh was an awful, awful person, but I take no pleasure from this premature death and suffering. Right. So we have these decent reporters, but they're so busy pretending to be something else. Like I said, the actual mayoral candidate, instead of interviewing him on the first try, the reporter, she decided she was going to cover Gaza, and of course that failed. And of course, and they had to cover Parkland. Well, bless Parkland, but we have a bigger population, but I guess they're richer per person. So there's all these statistics I feel like need to be thrown on the screen like it's something out of a Jim Cramer show to show, no, here's what's really going on. Oh, here's the population, but here's the dollar density. I've joked that there should be a warning instead of fantasy violence. How about ED, economic disparity, for like the old shows like Dallas and Dynasty. Yeah. Oh, yeah. These are people that exist, but that's not you. That's not even your boss's boss. So these are just some of the problems I wish would be touched on by the big media, but they're going to fail. And the fact that AM radio is how most people get their information, trapped in their car for 4 and 6 hours, that doesn't help. They get to choose between David Bongino and Sean Hannity, as I said at City Hall. If you have questions about South Florida, you have my number.
Well, it's also infuriating. I mean, I don't know about you. The rare times,
and I did vote Nader, and I get blamed for that. Yeah.
It's infuriating because I turn on CNN once in a while, MSNBC, and it's like politics, but like the ESPN version. I mean, 2 hour after hour dissecting polls,
at least
who's up and who's down, and it's like, go ahead.
At least ESPN2 would occasionally burst out with something like, pandemonium is broken out on the chessboard.
Right.
And so I hope people go back to the history of 20 and 24 years ago, watch the movie 537 about what led up to Bush v. Gore, watch the movie Recount, watch at least the first season of The Circus from Showtime about 2016. So you want to blame me for my vote for Ralph Nader for putting in W? Okay, be sure to thank the entire state of Tennessee that did not want to see their favorite son.
Right.
They're so in love with Fred Thompson.
I'm sorry,
it's more complicated, but no one knows history.
It's totally remarkable that they still talk about Ralph Nader voters when Al Gore won the election. Al Gore won the election. It was not Ralph Nader that cost Al Gore the election. It was the Supreme Court. And as you mentioned, he lost his home state. I mean,
if no one remembers, because we don't do history. I remember I'm a history major, but there's no history teachers anymore in all of Florida.
Right.
You have to be a professor, which I tried. So this is what we're up against at the multiple levels of stupid.
Yeah.
And if you want to vote third party, okay, but you're going to get blamed if it goes wrong. They're never going to learn. One of the problems with Biden, bless him, how much of his mind is 30, 40 years out of date, just like Trump. And like with Clinton, we can only hope that Kamala's brain is only 20 years out of date. When I heard her talk about busing, I thought I was watching an episode of Different Strokes when they were covering it in 1980.
Totally.
So watch out for these traps. Good luck.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. All right. I don't know your name, but it says on the screen you want to talk a healthcare rant. You're up.
Hello?
Hey there.
Oh, okay. You hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so to kind of piggyback off of what the last guy said, it was about like when people blame you for going third party and all that. Like
hmm
I definitely run into that quite a bit because it's like, oh, like that's just a vote for Trump or something, like, oh, that's a spoiler, that kind of thing.
hmm
But I guess that like is run of the mill stuff. But as far as healthcare rants, so my sister had a major stroke the other day,
I'm sorry to hear
and she
that.
went to the emergency room, and she doesn't have health care. So like they're kind of trying to push her out of the hospital, but she's in really rough condition. Like she's all numb on one side, can't hardly talk, she couldn't swallow or nothing like that.
Jesus.
And I mean, they're like trying to get rid of her because, she doesn't have health care. And it's like, what the heck? That's awful, you know?
Only in America.
Oh, of course. Also, I heard that they have mask bans up there. So definitely be careful with the COVID cases because we're kind of in a surge right now. So
Yeah.
there's that.
That is my hometown, Long Island.
Oh, yeah.
They
Yeah, Nassau,
instituted
yeah, they
a
banned the
mass.
masks over there.
I got to tell you something. I mean, I don't live there anymore, but how draconian is it that you are going to institute mask bans? Whatever people think of COVID, because it's become this political thing, which it never should have. But how do you tell
Oh, for
people?
real.
How do you tell people what they can and cannot wear on their face for health or otherwise? It's ridiculous.
Well, like the
That
reason why they're doing it is because of the Palestine protesters and stuff, because they wear masks a lot, and they're making it about that. But it's like, no, we're still in a pandemic. We're in a surge, and
yeah,
like
but you
there's like
could they could
400 million people.
I think they're using that as a cover for they
Yeah.
just don't want people wearing masks. A lot of these people have made COVID a culture war. I mean, there were even bars that I saw signs, you can't come in here if you wear a mask. What kind of fucking
Oh, yeah.
sick idiot doesn't want like your business because you wore a mask to protect? I don't care if you wear a mask. I don't care if you wear glow in the dark sticks. I don't care what you wear
Yeah.
as long as it doesn't affect, me or what, it doesn't matter. And what are they going to start harassing grannies and old ladies that wear masks? It is ridiculous. And
They actually do. Like they
oh my
actually
God.
do. Like a lot of people get like mask harassment, like for wearing a mask and stuff. And most of them are like chronically ill,
Right.
like with a myriad of chronic conditions and stuff. So they become high risk from like one COVID infection. And
Right.
then like they got people being difficult and stuff like that. Like
And
even the ones on the plane. Like
yeah,
those do.
Eva pointed out, it's a good point. She said they want the masks off so they could use facial recognition, which is true.
Oh yeah.
But
Yes. I was
that's a big problem because let's say, I don't know, you're going to a sporting event indoors, which they definitely they definitely use facial surveillance. They do that at Madison Square Garden and elsewhere. To if there's a rowdy person or whatever it is. Okay, but what if you want to wear a mask for COVID, for whatever it is? You can't. Just like people said, it's very ironic because here you had the people screaming like, my body, my choice. Don't force me to take an injection. But they're the same people that say force them to take off their mask. It's absurd. And by the way,
it really is.
I don't care what people. I don't care what people say. I don't care if people want to minimize COVID. I still think I got it recently. My kid got it. My wife got it. Is it?
Oh no.
Is it the plague like it was before vaccinations? No. However, whether it's COVID or anything else, common sense. You think it's a good idea to get the flu 4 times a year? No.
Definitely not.
You think it's a good idea to get anything, multiple times a year, especially something like COVID where we don't really know the long-term effects? So for those who are just like, for those who just say, oh, it's a cold, this and that, well, we'll see what happens in 5-10 years if it leads to cancer and other things, because plenty of studies showing that it enhances your risk for other things. I'm not saying shut down your life indefinitely because it's not going anywhere. But
Oh, totally. You can still live your life. You just got to take precautions.
right.
You know.
So, but how's your sister
On
doing?
the topic of
Is your
facial
sister?
recognition, though,
Oh,
you
go ahead.
can opt out at the airport. Like,
Mhm.
I actually was out of town recently, and I opted out at both airports. Like, you have the option to not take your picture and then just have them, like, look at the ID and then, like, just, like, pop the mask down for a second and then, like, you know, because that's another way that they take pictures of you. And, like, if the airport loses that, you know, it's going to be a mess. Like, people get their ID stolen from that. The facial recognition doesn't really work on non-white people that well. So there's that issue too.
Right.
Like, I think it's like non-white people and like non-men that it doesn't work on. And it's like, that's a problem. Like, it might match you with somebody on a no-fly list for all you know. You definitely don't want that.
Well, I'll also say, we don't talk about it enough. This is discriminatory.
Oh, yeah.
This is discriminatory against disabled people. It's already hard enough.
It really is.
It's already hard enough if you're disabled, if you're immunocompromised. COVID has really made a lot of people that they cannot afford to get COVID. So they have had to basically more or less stay home because
literal cancer patients can't even access healthcare safely. Like,
exactly.
It's really awful.
And
like I said, even like with my sister and everything, like she had COVID quite a few times, probably about 4 or 5 times or something, because she was one of the anti-vax, you know, where she was like, you know, she thought it was the mark of the beast and she was like pure blood and all this other type of stuff. And boom, she has a stroke. And then like the doctors in there are not even like masking or nothing. And it's like, come on, doctors, you gotta, we're in the middle of a surge right now. You know, and you really think that somebody that just had a major stroke is going to be in a position to get COVID again? Like, that's going to cause even more problems.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear about your sister. I hope she recovers.
I need to fight this hospital.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about. I hope she recovers. Yeah. And thanks for calling. Sorry about the madness in this fucked up country.
For real, though. But I do love your show, though, and I will definitely be passing this video along.
All right. Thanks so much.
And other ones.
All right. Take care.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for listening.
No problem. All right. Elias,
all right,
you're up.
Hi.
Oh, hi there. Hey, Jordan. I've been watching your show for a long time. Good to finally speak to you, man.
Hey.
I had a question for you about your video you did about Michigan yesterday.
Sure.
Yeah, so basically, now maybe this is just my misanthropy talking to me, but like, don't you think that, like, yeah, I mean, of course, Biden and Trump, they both don't give a crap about Palestine and whatever, but, you know, don't you think everybody's watching the mainstream media, including, you know, Muslim Americans or whatever, and they're going to be like, well, the Democrats are more in favor of us, you know, because that's the messaging.
I could only tell you my conversations in Dearborn. I was recently there. Obviously, Dearborn, if people don't know, is the largest Arab American population in the country. Detroit, it is a suburb of Detroit, but Detroit, the city of Detroit, also has a decent chunk of Arab Americans. I mean, I can't speak for all of them. I didn't speak with all of them, but I spoke with a lot. They're just done. They were done with Biden and they're done with Harris. I think there might be a 40 to 50% drop among Arab American voters for Harris. I'm just telling you the facts, whether people want to listen or not, because at the end of the day, yes, it's Dearborn, but they're so connected to Gaza. A lot of them have family members there. And for them, I mean, this is bigger than an election. It's literally life or death. So I don't really think, how do you tell somebody who their people are being slaughtered, they're seeing it on social media, that, well, it could be worse under this guy? I kind of think that would fall on deaf ears. So I don't think it's just the Arab American vote that matters in Michigan, but I think that could be the difference. I think you also have young voters who were already kind of fleeing the Democratic Party when it was Biden. Sure, some of them have come back now that it's Harris, but a lot of those young voters, from inflation, the economy, climate, and Gaza, they're not suddenly sprinting to Harris. I also think this has gone undercovered. Michigan is the auto industry. 600 GM workers were just laid off. Another 2,500 Stellantis workers are about to be laid off. UAW workers, by the way, that's not a small, insignificant amount. And they're all in the Detroit area being laid off. Now, you could say, well, what does that mean? Are they automatically going to go vote for Trump? No, that doesn't mean they're going to automatically go for Trump. But if you get laid off, you might not be, you could react several ways. You could blame the incumbents. You could say, well, I had my job under Trump. You could say, fuck it, I'm not voting. So I think there's a lot of compounding factors in Michigan that are not in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, like the Arab American vote, like the auto industry. Also, RFK was doing very, very well in Michigan. Towards the end of last year, he had 20% of the vote. Now, you could say, well, that was before he lost steam and before Harris got in. All right, well, even if you cut it down from 20 to, let's say, 7, he's still on the state ballot. He's still on the ballot in Michigan. He sued to get off it, but he's still on the ballot. There's a lot of voters that are not really plugged in like you and I. They might not even know he dropped out, and they might vote for RFK because he's on the ballot. Or those who know he dropped out and know he endorsed Trump, they might vote for Trump. So I think with Michigan, it is a swing state. It went for Trump in 2016 and moved back to Biden. So I think it's up for grabs. And, I have a hard time talking about it in the electoral sense because I think it's a moral issue, the genocide.
Oh,
in
yeah,
Gaza.
no, don't get me wrong. That's why we're all watching you, man, because we're sick and tired of the 24-hour day. That's the only point I was trying to make, basically, is that if CNN has got a 24-hour news station, all they're saying all day is about how Harris did one tiny little thing. I don't know if you heard about it. She's going to give small business loans. That's what they say every 4 years. Oh, we're going to give maybe a few little small business loans. And then everybody starts, roaring with applause. And it's like, well, they didn't do anything. It's only for people that already have a small brick and mortar business that are already doing stuff. And like they, that's basically what, if you were talking about like in social terms, that's like the petty bourgeoisie,
I'm not sure about that. I read it because for a minute, I actually thought it was a good thing because my parents have a small business. From what I read, it would be for new startup businesses, not existing small businesses. I could be wrong, but that's how I read it.
Okay.
That it would be
you're right. Yeah.
It would be for new startups, which that's great. But what about all the existing small businesses? Yeah, listen, what you're going to get from Harris is a lot of trimming around the edges, tax credits, the $25,000 tax credit she's talking about for first-time homeowners. That's not a bad thing. I'm not going to lie. That is a good thing. The problem with that is, what does that do about 6 to 7% interest rates? What does that do about the soaring prices of housing that is from your Wall Street donors buying up America's housing and then doubling the price? So $25,000 down payment, that's great. But if people can't afford the mortgages because of the interest rates, if people cannot afford the communities they're living in because of the gentrification, if $25,000 is great, but if Wall Street is making the total cost impossible, then $25,000 doesn't get you far. Now, you could say, well, Jordan, Trump's not going to do that. Yeah, but of course he's not going to do that. But we're talking about, crumbs versus nothing. Well, we need more than crumbs.
Yeah.
We need more than crumbs to turn around this Gilded Age economy. And everything I've seen is a lot of crumbs she's offering.
Sure. Yeah. And then the other thing I was going to say is, there's a lot of talk that there's going to be a recession coming soon anyway. So it's like, what good is a loan going to do? It's going to put people in debt. If there's a lot of speculation right now that, that there's going to be a recession, and, so if they're going to get a loan, well, then they're just going to be more in debt. You know what I mean? So they got to deal with, like you said, they got to deal with underlying problems. And, I know a lot of people in the chat, they're either Stein or Cornell Westwards. I'm the latter, and you know what I mean? And some of them are probably going to do Democrat, just hold their nose and vote Democrat. But, every time I talk with Democrats nowadays, it's really, really condescension. It's like, okay, well, you're going to vote for Cornell Westwards, then you want Trump to win, and you're a horrible person, and I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And, if they want people to, if they want to have a civil conversation, they should act like it, because they're not being very respectful when when it comes to these type of discussions. It's either you vote for my guy or you're a terrible, horrible person and you're racist and you're sexist and you're homophobic or whatever. And it's like, well, Cornel West is black and his running mate's a female Muslim. So how is that? They're just making shit up,
I think it was Ryan Grimm who said this in a recent segment. Democratic Party they don't care about democracy. They care about the Democratic Party. And same thing with Republicans, by the way. These people are not like, democracy would be like, yeah, more competition, more choices. Great. Well, these folks they care about how the Democratic Party does, how the candidate they want to win do. So they're totally fine with undemocratic measures to take Stein, West, RFK off the ballot, to do everything they can to limit the competition, which is not democratic at all. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I say to people, the fact that it's even this close, again, that it was this close in 2016, that it was this close in 2020, that it's this close in 2024, with a used car salesman like Trump, should tell you everything you need to know. That is not a reflection on Jill Stein. You can't blame third-party candidates for that. You got to blame the Democratic Party, because they should be crushing, and they could have been crushing Trump. The Democratic Party could have been crushing every Republican candidate for the last 30, 40 years if they just provided policies that are extremely popular. Despite what the media says, the swing state and those elusive swing voters, they do want universal health care. The polls show it. They're for free public college. They want real action on the climate change. On policies, they are for leftist policies. But, there's just a lot of branding and bullshit that goes out there about socialism and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, if she loses, I have zero sympathy for the Democratic Party. They brought it upon themselves. And I say, vote for whoever you want. I think Trump is a threat, but at the same time, am I going to lie and think, the country's going to crater and we're going to become 1930s Germany? No, I don't think that. If I actually thought that, I would say, hold your nose. I'd vote for Kamala Harris. But I don't, they said this in 2016. It was awful. A lot of terrible things in the Trump administration. But I got news for you. A lot of terrible things in the Biden administration, too. So.
Sure. Is it okay if I say one last thing, or are you going to go to the next,
Sure.
you got to go next call?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I just want to say it's regards to popularity. Don't worry about if you're not popular now. Just keep on fighting, and it took Democracy Now! A long time before they became somewhat not mainstream, but, they've got, thousands more views than they did when I started watching. And, I relate to you a lot in the sense that, I'm also an author as well. And, I've written books and whatever, and trying to get the word out there and trying to get people to, actually want to buy the stuff, or even in your case, subscribe to your channel and get, do a paid membership and all that. It's hard, so just don't give up, man.
I keep trucking along, man. There's times when I want to, when I say, what the hell am I doing? I'm going nowhere. But it's people like you who keep me going. I wish I started when Democracy Now! Started. There was a lot less competition. Now it's just, there's a gazillion channels. There's a gazillion podcasts. There's so much content out there that it's very hard to break through. But at the same time, I'm pretty proud. We've been around for 6 years. We just passed 200,000 subscribers. We have a decent, I think like 1,600 or so paid members, and we're moving in the right direction. So I'm definitely proud of where things going. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, and I appreciate your show, and I'll keep watching it for as long as you keep doing it, man. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. Ryan, you're up.
Hello?
Hey there.
Hey, John, how's it going?
Good.
Good. So, I guess I have a question regarding the Electoral College. How familiar are you with the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact?
It's so funny you said that, because I literally just went to that website for the first time last week. I had just heard about it then. So, yes, now I am familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so far, around, I think Maine recently joined, and Colorado, and so far it's able to gather 206 electoral votes.
Mm-hmm.
And my second question is, which state do you think is most likely to to join the other states that voted yes?
That's a good question. I'd have to look at which states haven't joined yet, but my guess is some of the more populous states like New York, California. My guess is one of those might down the road.
Yeah.
But
California are, yeah.
I also think there's probably a lot of pressure not to by the wealthy, because you got to realize the electoral college, things like the electoral college, things like the filibuster, they are popular by the elite because it creates a system where one person, one vote doesn't exist. It creates a system where majority will doesn't exist. We don't have majority.
Yeah.
We don't have a majority government in this country, meaning the person that wins the most votes does not have does not always win. And even the person that wins, the minority could pretty much stop anything. That's not how it is in most other countries. That's why, I think a parliamentary system would even be better than this. But
yeah.
I think the wealthy, that run our government want an electoral college because it guarantees that you don't have one person, one vote. Because if you had a system where the majority rules, meaning the person who won, like Hillary Clinton, whatever you think about her, she won 3-4 million more votes than Trump. So she should have won the election. I think Democrats have won the popular vote like 8 out of the 9 elections or something like that. But that's not the system, unfortunately. But if I had to guess a state that would sign on to that, it would be one of the bigger, liberal states.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, New York and California have already passed their versions, and I think Nevada is most likely gonna be next because it passed both chambers, and I think it has to be signed by the governor.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll look more into that. I just started looking into that last week, actually.
Yeah, and the thing about this winner-take-all system, it's not specifically written into the Constitution. It's just something that the states themselves can decide whether or not it's a winner-take-all system or just fragments of it. So, yeah, even though it doesn't entirely eliminate the Electoral College, it gives the states the leeway to not follow it, if that makes any sense.
We need, I'm sorry for all the people that want to cry, states' rights. We need one federal election system, period. Not a patchwork of different state laws. I mean, our system is super complicated when it shouldn't be. You got some states that, like Nebraska and Maine, like you have the state vote and electoral college votes for that, but then you have Congressional District 2 in Nebraska or it's so convoluted and complicated. It's ridiculous. And we also should not have a system where candidates, we shouldn't have a system where candidates are prostituting themselves to billionaires for funding. We should have public financing. But putting that aside, we shouldn't have a system where, everyone's, no offense to Iowa, but everybody is, flooding Iowa for months and months and months because that's the first state. And everyone's flooding New Hampshire because, or everyone is going to Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, and the rest of the country is ignored. It should be a popular vote. And you want to know something? In that case, Republicans would probably get their ass kicked. And in that case, they'd have to become a less extreme party. Or Democrats, if they continue moving to the right, they could lose. And that actually would move the parties more towards the people. I also think it could affect ballot measures too, where we have more ballot measures that are national ballot measures rather than state ballot measures. So we could actually vote for policy directly rather than, these corrupt officials ignoring our will. But yeah, I'm going to look more into the national compact.
Yeah. And I guess my next question is, what do you say to those? You've probably already answered it earlier in the show, but what do you say to those who say, don't vote for a third party, it's a spoiler, and all that?
I mean, I tell anyone, vote for whoever you want. It's not for me to tell people who to vote for. If people are going to vote for Harris, I'm not going to shame them. If people are going to vote for Trump, I mean, I'm not for that, but that's their choice. But to me, I would simply say it is up to it is up to candidates to get people's votes. So stop focusing or trying to guilt people on who they're going to vote for, because you think it's going to create X, Y, and Z result. Start looking at the candidates. Why are they not off? No, you're never going to get every single thing you want from any politician. That's not realistic. But most people, for their vote, are reasonable and would consider someone if they get one major thing. Most people that are holding out for very specific. Yeah, sure, there's people that are just done with it and are not going to vote for any Democrat for any reason, or any Republican for any reason. But there's a lot of people that are going to RFK or went to RFK or are going to Jill Stein or going to Cornel West over a specific issue, whether it's Gaza, whether it's climate. So why is the reaction to guilt them rather than pressuring those candidates to offer bold policy to sway those people? So I say to those folks, I think your message, I think you're huffing and puffing at the wrong person. You should be huffing and puffing at the candidate, not the voter. That's what I say.
Yeah, and I find it interesting that they always say, oh, if you vote for Jill Stein, it's a vote for Trump. Well, what about Gary Johnson, who voted in the Libertarian Party?
Right?
Isn't he considered right wing? Wouldn't he be getting votes away from Trump? Why is the right wing blaming Gary Johnson for Trump's loss? Or I mean, I know he won in 2016, but still.
Yeah, it's a great question. You don't hear that a lot. And the liberals blaming Jill Stein and Cornel West don't seem to have a problem with the Libertarian third party vote. It's only votes that they think could be taken from their side. So it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, either you believe in democracy or you don't.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, in terms of I mean, in a democracy, you're supposed to have the ability to choose whoever you want, and
Correct.
if there isn't competition, then there's no democracy.
I'm with you. I agree. I think there should be more choices, not less. So we're on the same page. I gotta move to the next person. Thank you, though.
Okay, no problem.
All right. Last caller, because I have to go watch my daughter. Raymond. You there, Raymond? Hey.
It's Matt.
Oh, Matt. Sorry.
How's it going, bud?
Hey.
No, it's okay. It's my last name. I just wanted to say I really appreciate all of the things that you've done for East Palestine as far as following it.
Absolutely.
There's a couple questions that I had. I live in North Lima, so I know you've been out this way.
Yeah.
So you're familiar with. I'm within the 15-mile radius, and we've gotten multiple letters of saying about this class action lawsuit. One of the big questions that I have is for the final hearing of approval. It's supposed to be held September 25th at 10 a.m. Downtown Youngstown Courthouse, so Market Street. Now, considering that there wasn't a lot of people that actually signed on to this, and the people that are around there, they're pretty hard up, a lot of them that are directly in East Palestine, you know what I mean? So I know that they would jump, like, no matter what, at some of this. What can we do? I mean, where are we at with it as far as the settlement? Because if it gets settled out, does that mean it's going to be very difficult to try to get back in? Because the way that I looked at it, and I have a really good friend that actually sent you an email. He hasn't got a response back, but it was about vinyl chloride, polyvinyl chloride, and John Podesta. And he sent you a couple links. And one of the things that he did his research on is that he said, he sent you a couple links, and it says, read that and you'll understand why vinyl chloride gas, PMCs, PVCs are part of the greenhouse agenda. under Podesta and the Biden administration green agendas within the Department of Energy. So one of the real reasons that he kind of figured out through his research, and he kind of wanted you guys to digest what he wrote and then kind of get in contact with him, is that he feels that this cover-up is 100% because of the green agendas. There's a very strong argument that they're going to be using PMCs and PVCs in a part of that. And for them to get any kind of bad news, it's going to foil that agenda.
Right.
It's now saying that PVCs are bad. So I know I just kind of slammed you with a couple things, but I've been very, very excited to try to get a hold of
Tell
you.
him, I might have missed his email. Tell him to try again. Just Jordan Chariton at StatusCoup.com. So first name, last name at StatusCoup.com, because I might have missed it. Yeah, that would not surprise me. When I hear John Podesta, it's usually not good. And yes, they do use vinyl chloride in a lot of things related to the, quote, green agenda. I'm for a Green New Deal and all those things, but we have to have safe, repeated safe chemical transport, not the reckless system we have now, as we've seen in East Palestine. I'm not going to lie and say I'm an expert on the settlement, but what I am an expert on is smelling bullshit a mile away. I have never heard of a settlement going through this quickly, particularly in an environmental disaster like this. For it to go through in a year tells me that Norfolk Southern is trying to settle for as little as humanly possible, because they know if they don't settle now, that bill is going to skyrocket up, because there's going to be so much cancer and other health problems, not just in East Palestine, but the surrounding areas. So the residents I've spoken to, I mean, it's their lives. It's not for me to tell them what to do. And I understand a lot of them are, poor, and it would be tough for them to turn down that kind of money. But the settlement, the settlement is completely inadequate, if you ask me.
Oh, 100%. And the bad thing is that a lot of individuals don't know. This particular person that I told you that sent you an email, he deals with chemicals and biohazards and waste and how to get rid of it. One of the things is that we don't really know who the company is, because there's a cradle to grave aspect on a train. So there's that aspect that's not even being talked about. And the fact is, like, I'm 15 miles away and they said, oh, here's $500, Now my health concerns are long-term, but this is not just a 10-year problem. From my understanding, this is a 500-year problem. This is the worst chemical disaster that's ever happened on the history of the planet.
Well, wait. I have an interview tomorrow again with that toxicologist, George Thompson, and that is the case he's making, that there's no other comparison to what has happened in East Palestine in world history.
Yes, and this is exactly what my buddies had said the day of what happened. He's lives down south, and he's like, just move, just get all your things and leave, because there's no way to get away from it. You're going to have to deal with this forever. So basically, all I got to say is I'm in North Lima area, man. If you get a hold of him, you guys get in contact. If you guys ever have to come out, you guys got a place to stay, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, thank you.
But I think that maybe you guys should be here for that September 25th deal, if you have anybody to come out.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm right now planning a reporting trip in the swing states for the end of the month. So if I could swing it, because I'm going to be in the Midwest, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. So obviously I'll be going through Ohio. I'll try to make it through on the 26th.
Yeah, that'd be great. And like, for all the listeners out there, I mean, he's not lying when the news is saying, well, we don't really know anything, because the most honest news is our local news, and they're completely in the dark too.
Yeah.
Everybody that's been a part of this is in the dark. And if you want to talk about candidates, government, and all that stuff like that, look at the Department of Energy and see what's going on there, because they're a strong force that's changing everything that we know about where I live.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to have a close watch on these people that are in these areas. And the problem is that it's most of it's classified, and you'll end up in a box if you ever get to the actual the meat and potatoes of it. So
absolutely. Thank you for calling.
Thank you so much.
Tell your friend, email me directly, Jordan Chariton at StatusCoup.com.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right, I got to wrap the calls. I got to go watch my baby. She'll be 2 in November, by the way, so we're getting close. My daughter, Lily, who is talking up a storm and running up a storm. Thank you for watching. Let me read $50 super chat. Holy cow. Thank you. This is from CB. Thank you for remaining unbiased, reporting the truth, and not filling your pockets with corporate greed and influence. I hope you inspire future journalists and your rare breed doesn't go extinct. Keep up the good fight. God bless. Thank you, CB. I really appreciate those kind words. Reminder, Sunday, if you are in Washington, D.C. or the surrounding areas, I'll be at a bookstore, Busboys and Poets, with Crystal Ball. She'll be interviewing me about my new book, We the Poisoned, Exposing the Flint Water Cover-Up. So that'll be at 6 o'clock Eastern. We'll do a Q&A with the audience. I'll sign books. So I really, really hope if you're in D.C. or driving distance to D.C., you could make it out there to answer whoever's question. I couldn't live stream this one, so this one won't be live streamed. But I hope you can make it out if you're in that area. We'll send out an email and all that stuff to Substack so you know everything and the details. And please support us if you can. We need to keep growing our membership. So statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. That's 16 cents a day. That's all I'm asking, 16 cents a day. Thanks for watching.